Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all doing well on this, well, in Sydney, it's a nice sunny day. Hopefully it's sunny where you are. Thank you for attending the webinar today with David and myself. We're going to be talking about data analytics today, specifically around the Phocas solution and how it can connect back into the NetSuite side of things. I'm Robert Jurcec. I'm the CEO and founder of OneKloudX. I'm sure just looking at the attendees that most of you would know me, but for those who don't, we are a NetSuite solution provider. We also support and manage other solutions as well, and work with best of breed solutions like Phocas and take that to our clients and our customers to give them the breadth of solution and cloud tech that we all love and stand by. So I've got with us today David Chambers, who is a senior solution consultant at Phocas. He's been at Phocas for a few years now, David, 12 years in total, and brings a wealth of experience across different industries and sectors, and has worked also with a number of different business technologies as well. So welcome, David, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to showcase and go through the Phocas solution from a reporting standpoint.
Thanks.
So a bit of housekeeping. I'm sure, considering this is a webinar, you all know where the toilets are, so I won't bother explaining in case you don't know. But this session's recorded, so for those who have registered but are not able to attend for any reason, this will be shared with you after the event. And please ask questions as we go. There is a particular Q&A section on the actual GoToWebinar control panel where you can ask and submit questions, and as David is talking through, I'll do my best to ask David those questions and hopefully we can answer them to your satisfaction. And then towards the end, there'll also be a Q&A session as well for anything that you may have missed. From an agenda standpoint, we'll end up setting the scene just to give a bit of context around today. David will take you through who is Phocas, what is the data analytics solution that they've got and how it can fix a lot of your issues around reporting that you may have, and also what is XFP&A. And so David will talk through that, and then like I mentioned, it's Q&A. It's an hour we've got today, so it's going to be quick and sharp and to the point. And like I said, any questions, please ask as we go along. Over to you, David.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Robert. So let's get into it. Let's talk about, I guess, where I see a lot of customers are right now that we work with that don't have Phocas, and we come in and we start talking to them. They have a whole bunch of data. Some of it's sorted. Someone manages to use an Excel sheet to build some data, sort it, kind of arrange it nicely. In the NetSuite world, someone's built a few saved searches that they extract data out of on a regular basis there. And that's kind of where it stops a lot of the time. But what people really need is they really need to be able to get, and what businesses really need is they need to be able to get to that far right-hand side there. We want to get the data. We want to be able to slice and dice it. We want to tell a story with the data. We want to be able to get that data into the hands of people that actually need it on a day-to-day basis. If you've got customers that you're visiting on a regular basis, you want to be able to go talk to those customers, click a few buttons, and actually have a conversation with them. You need that answer now. Tomorrow is typically too late in a lot of situations there. But you also want to make sure that it's secure and it's safe within the business. It doesn't leak out anywhere else. People aren't accidentally emailing the wrong spreadsheet out to a customer when it should be an internal email. Those types of things we obviously want to protect as well. And that's what we really found with our customers. They're really data rich. They've got an ERP system. They might have a CRM system as well, but they know they need to do something with the data, but they don't really know how to do it there. And that's where a tool like Phocas really comes in. So We've got three parts that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about our focus analytics, and that's really around analytics around sales data, purchasing data are the 2 points that we'll cover today. But really expand your mind around that and go, well, look, as long as I've got some data, I can probably get some value out of that data, and that's really what our analytics tool provides to you. The next thing we're going to talk about is our financials suite. I want to build a really quick profit and loss, or multiple different profit and losses or balance sheets for different people in the organization. I want to build in security around that so they can't see salary and wages and things along those lines there in one simple tool. And then we also want to plug into that financial statement is our budgeting and forecasting. And those two down the bottom is that it's that XFP&A, or extended financial planning and analytics, is what those two kind of tools are, and what Phocas is into itself there. We're a company-wide financial planning, analysis and reporting all in one system, and that's a key point. We get the data out from your various systems and we plug Phocas in over the top to give you all that information that you need there. The types of customers that we typically work with: wholesale, distribution, health and scientific. A lot of customers in manufacture, retail, distribution, product customers, lots of products, lots of customers, huge data volumes, wanting to slice and dice and kind of look at that data. And then growing now more into that financial space. Those businesses obviously have a finance department there. They might have expense reporting across various different cost centers and branches and countries and things like that. And that's where we really see our financials and our budgeting tool work really nicely there. So we'll start out with our data analytics specifically, and we'll look at some sales data and some kind of purchasing and stock information and see how that works. So we want to talk about individual stakeholders here. What are the benefits for the actual people at the coalface? I've got a sales rep, they need data. I've got a warehouse manager, he needs to know how many outstanding purchase orders he's got at the click of a button. That's what we really want to talk about with our data analytics. The solution itself in terms of data analytics is split into three sections. We'll cover the number 1 and 2 here today. The analytics or the analysis grid, that's where I say the magic happens. That's where you just go off on these tangents and kind of drill down into the data that you need then and there. But then you've also got your visualization, where you go and find those gems of KPIs that you've got in your business, and you want to display them so everyone can see them and everyone's on the same page there. Everyone's not grabbing their own version of the truth and saying, these are how my numbers are because I've made them that way. Phocas enables you to kind of control that and govern that information there. There is a database designer tool, which is quite powerful, which is how we actually extract all the data and build all that. That's too technical for today. We won't be going into that, but just to know there is that kind of powerful tool, database engine behind Phocas there. So let's look at data analytics first, and then we'll come back and we'll look at our financial statements piece in a minute. So here's Phocas. I'm in a sales environment here. We're all going to pretend that we're in the electrical wholesale business today. We're selling lamps, light switches to a whole bunch of customers all over the world. In particular, the UK, the US, and Australia is how this data set is set up here. So what we do is we leverage your NetSuite data. We leverage save searches set up in NetSuite, and we bring this data into Phocas there. Then we build this structure on the left-hand side to meet your specific needs. So what data do you have? How your business is structured, what customer groups you've got, what product groups you've got. Those types of things is what we're interested in there. And so what it enables you to do is simply ask questions and go, all right, well, I'm interested in a territory today. So I might say, I'm the sales manager of New South Wales, and I want to sit down with my sales manager of New South Wales, one of the two. And so all I do is I click on my territory, and it's now going to give me that information. I can see here I've got all my different regions and counties and states and things like that I've got set up here, and there's my New South Wales line there. So this is where the analytics starts to shine. I need to know something about this. What is it that I need to know? I might decide that, all right, I want to have a look at how my products are performing. in that region. So I just click on my product subclass and here's all the data that I need. I can then say, all right, well, look, that's great that we've done $2.7 million in this region over the last 12 months that we can see at the top. But what about my profit? How have I done in profit? How much have I done in units there? What's the quantity that I've moved? So I can easily change this data to display whatever it is that I'm interested in. I might do local profit here today, and we can now see that. I've made $600,000 profit, 120,000 in downlights. Okay, not too bad. Is that good? Is that bad in comparison to last year? I don't know. Let's try. Let's find out. So I just click again, another button, my mode button, change to my variance, and that's going to do my comparison of this year versus last year. And what we're going to see in this case is we're going to get a list of every single product subclass that you've got and whether you've grown or whether you've declined. And unfortunately, in this case, our profit in New South Wales ain't doing so great. I'm down $45,000 profit in my downlights category. I'm down $50,000 profit or 50% in my LEDs. Okay, maybe that's what I'm interested in today. So I highlight that. And then I ask the next step in the question. Where do I want to go? What do I want to look at here? Now, this could be anything depending on your role in the business. If you're very much product driven, you might say, all right, well, look, I want to look at the individual product. Today, I'm very kind of customer centric, sales rep driven is what I want to look at here. So I might say, all right, well, why are we losing out with our margin and LEDs there? I want to go to my customer ship to. And you'll see now, here's every single customer, how much they've declined in profit there over the last 12 months. But you might say, all right, well, I don't want to see profit, I want to see value again, or I want to see quantity in this case. So what's actually going on in the business is really just a click of a button away. I can slice and dice and change that data backwards and forwards as much as I need in that case. So it's super, super simple for us to do that. Once I'm happy with this, I can just go, all right, I'm finished. I know what I need to do. I need to go and speak to customer X or customer Y. I'm just going to hit reset. I'm going to go back to the beginning and I'm going to ask my next question of the data there. So I click reset and I'm now back to the beginning. I've got no filters selected. I've got nothing listed on the left-hand side. It's ready for me to drill down into this data again. So what we might want to look at now is we've sliced and diced the data. Maybe what I want to do is I want to share some information with my team members, and I want to make sure that they're on top of it. And I say, well, we're in the electrical business today. Again, I might look at my product subclass. And I might say, look, we're in the electrical business. We're selling low voltage lights. We're also selling medium voltage lights. If we sell one of those two, we want to sell a transformer that goes with it. We're talking about a link sell opportunity here. And I get to define what is in that shopping basket. The easiest example I like to think about this is if you're thinking about it as if every time you go to the supermarket, it's the bacon, it's the eggs example there, it's the bread and the milk. It's those key things that really should make up a shopping basket every single time, especially if they're buying another complementary product at the same time there. I think there's some stat that I heard somewhere from a supermarket where if someone buys fresh fruit, they're X percentage more likely to buy yogurt at the same time there because they go together so well. So we want to target where that gap is in that market. And so that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to take this, my 3 items, I'm going to click on my matrix button at the top of the page, and now we can see low voltage, medium voltage, and then transformers is displayed nicely there for us as column headings now. Let's go and jump into our customer ship to now, because really that's what I want to see. I'm very customer centric in the examples that I'm doing today. So I'm going to click on my customer ship to. So now I can see that. Let's just pick one at random here. Let's take number 10. $155,000 in total across those 3 groupings, 92,000, 21,000, and then 40,000 in transformers. So they're not doing too bad. They're supporting us kind of well across all these 3 groupings. They're kind of in the same ratios as the customers either side of it. So we might be happy with that. Or you might say, look, each of those products is such a various different value per product there. Maybe we want to do it by units. I know that every time I sell one light, I need to sell a transformer. So there's a ratio associated with that as well. So what we would do is just change that and say, hey, let's do it by quantity instead. And so we change that. Again, just look at the data slightly differently. And instantly, if we start to look down that left-hand side or down that right-hand side, sorry, under transformers, have a look at the couple that stick out here. My 3 PW Marine customers that we're working with there, I've got one in each country that I'm dealing with here. They're really low in their transformers. Compared to people either side, they're a quarter, a third of what it should be in comparison to kind of their peers either side of them there. So instantly, there's value. Go out, talk to them. Hey, you're buying transformers, but not very many. Why is that? The other thing we could do with this is, if I'm at head office, I want to share this to my team, but I only want to share it a certain subset of this data. Maybe what I want to do is I want to right click in that transformers column, and I want to say, hey, show me when transformers is equal to 0. So they've bought a low voltage or a medium voltage light, but their transformer sales is equal to 0. So if I do that, look what we've got now. Here's a perfect target list. Get out there, guys, talk to these customers. So what I would do with this is, I would click on that star and I would just go save favorite. This will allow me to share that amongst my team members. That data will automatically filter based on the user that logs in. So your Queensland rep only sees Queensland and your Auckland rep only sees Auckland there, but it's showing them the data specific that you need them to get there. It's giving them that KPI. You can set it up to email them every week, every month on a set time scale there to say, hey, here's a report, you need to do something with it. It's our lost customers report. It's our 0 sales in transaction transformers report there. So nice and simple. Let's reset that again. Because we looked at a grid there, but we also know that people are very visual within a business. So what we want to do is we might want to pick out key indicators, key KPIs, chart them, throw them onto a dashboard there. So what we do is we just build that again, and we just one click, we can turn it into a chart. So how we do that in Phocas is we say, I've got my customer type. Now I've actually, in my data set here, in my business, my demo business here, I actually do a budget by each of my different customer types. I say, look, I want to sell X amount into healthcare, X amount into IT. For you guys, it could be reps have a budget, territories have a budget, products have a budget. For us, it doesn't matter. You can build it at any level. But what it allows me to do is, if I go to my stream option now, what we'll see is it's going to give me that actual versus budget type view. But I want to make it nice and pretty. I want to make it red, yellow, and green, depending on whether we're good or bad there. So here's my data. Let's just turn it into a chart to do that. So I click on my chart icon, and there it is. What type of chart do I want? There's a whole bunch available to me here. I'm going to change this one. My favorite chart here is my bullet chart. The reason I say that is, look how easy it is for me to set that color coding up. I know where I need to focus on farming and on education. So that's what I want to say. That's what I want to add to my dashboard there. So I click on that star, and this time I just go add to dashboard, and then that information would get added straight on to my dashboard there. So that's a little bit around our sales analytics. The other part of Phocas analytics that people really like is, rather than looking at sales of products, they want to look at the stock of their products, their purchasing patterns, those types of things. And I'll show you how we look at that within Phocas and an example of what some of our customers are doing. And I'll start with a dashboard so you can see what a final dashboard actually looks like. And I've got one here which shows stock value, stock in transit, dead stock. Now, I've decided that dead stock here is 0 sales in the last 12 months, but you've got stock on hand. So basically, you've got a whole bunch of stuff collecting dust out the back there in the warehouse. So what we might do here is go, all right, well, I want to picture this data for a specific supplier. So just like we saw back in our analysis database, I just pick something and then just say focus. So I'm going to pick my lighting supplier here. I click focus, everything updates for me now. I can see I've got $1.5 million worth of stock that I bought from that supplier. I've got 300,000 of that, which is dead. I've got 97 products which are overstocks, and I've got 14 products here which are understocks. How's that supplier supporting me? Well, delivering full on time from that supplier, so them sending stuff to us, 92%. They're 2 days late if they are late, so it might not be the end of the world, but they've given us 34 late deliveries there. So we can really start to see how that customer, or sorry, that supplier in this case, is performing at a KPI level. But what's most important about this is that we don't stop at the actual dashboard. We're talking about analytics here, aren't we? So I want to drill in to this low stock item because I need to order these 14 products. So what I do is I click on that little arrow, and that's going to bring me in. It's going to allow me to analyze that data, and you'll now see here I am in my data set. Stock on hand, sales quantity over the last 12 months. Therefore, I've got my average sales quantity, and therefore I've got how many months of stock that I've got left there. So we can build some quite powerful reports within Phocas, specifically around, in this case, a lot of stock holding, how long until you're going to sell out, those types of things. So we can really take those different parts of your business and analyze that data to your heart's content. So that's our analysis side of Phocas. Let's move on, and let's jump back into our PowerPoint presentation for a moment, because I want to run through our financial reporting for NetSuite there. Some of you guys might be doing your financial reporting in Excel at the moment. They might be using some of the financial reports that are built into NetSuite there. But what about if an end user needs access to that? And a manager needs to be empowered with the information that they need there. So we don't really want them to have to worry about going in, building a profit and loss, trying to understand what's on that profit and loss there. Is the data that they're looking at just for their region? Is it for someone? Is it for the whole business? How do I actually filter that? Is what we want to talk about here. We also want to remove from the picture of that everyday self-service of those numbers, we want to remove the conduit of your finance team to provide that data. Just similarly like we did with our analysis data set, where the user goes and gets the data, what we don't want is this to occur. This is what we see a lot within our businesses. You've got your different department heads at the top there needing access to data, but it really gets run through a CFO or a financial controller or an accountant that's extracting data out, building a profit and loss, sharing it with the team members. They come back with questions. They need to go backwards and forwards, and it really, the bottleneck happens here at this link between the finance team and the accounting system. So the way that Phocas works is like this. Just like we extracted data out of your ERP system for your sales, we do the same thing with your financial statements there. Your ERP system sits in the middle. A little padlock there is all the security that you can build around the data, so only certain people need to see what they're allowed to see. And then financial statements wraps around your ERP system with your bookkeeper and your finance team embedded in it to control it and kind of, I guess, maneuver it. But at the end of the day, your end users jump in there and get the data out that they need, slice and dice it, interrogate why their marketing spend was too high or why their salaries were too high for the month there. So that's really what we're talking about there. And based on top of that, there's also a need for budgeting and forecasting that comes out of that. And we're budgeting and forecasting typically based on a spreadsheet a lot of the time. So what we do is we take the problem that we're seeing here is corporate management create a the Office of Finance create a budget. it's in a CSV file, someone copies and pastes it, rolls data up, adds linking formulas, updates a budget model, it gets pushed down to the team members underneath. Someone updates a financial updates aligning that budget for their specific department. Someone else ruins the whole budget Excel spreadsheet, sends it back to finance, and the whole thing needs to start all over again there. Which version of that profit and loss, or sorry, which version of that budget, sorry, is the correct budget that we're looking at there? So the same ideas that we spoke about with our finance lead into the budgeting, because these two tools really work closely together there. We want to remove that traditional budgeting of that Excel hell, and we want to move into our modern budgeting and forecasting, where we actually bring everything together. We analyze our budget, we manage our financial statements, so the structure of how we're actually going to budget, and then we provide the budgeting tool for everyone in the business to interrogate that budget, to input into that budget there as well. So these are the problems that we're trying to solve there. So let's look at that. Let's see how that actually looks in real life. So let's jump back to my financial statements data set now. We'll jump back into Phocas. So let's start with our financial statement here. So what have I got? I've got a super simple profit and loss. I can see revenue, cost of sale. I can open up my operating expenses, and you can see I've got a ton of operating expenses here. I've got everything all rolled up into one grouping. Now, you guys might look at that and go, well, that's nowhere near as much detail as I need, or that's not how my NetSuite system is set up. And you're probably right, but I'll show you in a minute how we can actually change that and look at various different versions of that profit and loss to meet the needs of your various different people within the organization there. But let's look at this layout here initially. Current, previous, budget, variance against budget, and variance against previous. My date range, I'm looking at calendar year 2021. Maybe I don't want to look at that anymore. Maybe I just want to go and change this and say, hey, let's look at financial year today. So I just go and change that. Now I've got a profit and loss for my financial year to date at the click of a button. Maybe I don't want to see my previous, because as we all know, the last couple of years have been a bit weird. So what we'll do is we'll remove that previous. So it's so easy for me to change this. And this is an end user doing this as well. So if I'm a branch manager and I want to tweak this slightly for my needs, I can go in and do that. It's not going to affect anyone else's report. It's just for me, because I need to see it how I need to see it there. What I could also do is say, look, I don't want to see my standard profit and loss. I want to see it based on a branch profit and loss, so a slightly different format. Or I need to see a balance sheet, or I need to see a cash flow statement here. All those are available from within in Phocas, and all of them are customizable as well. So I'm going to look at my branch profit and loss here to start with. So if I select that, you'll now see it's going away and it's rebuilding that for me. And look what we got here. It's quite interesting what we can do with this data. And now that we've got all our data in one tool here as well as a key point around that, let's look at our statistical data here to start with. I've got total invoices. Now, typically that's not something you put on a profit and loss, but because we've got the data from our sales analytics tool that we saw earlier, we can go and grab that number of invoices from there and throw it onto our profit and loss. Hey, we did 4,800 invoices this year, great. What's the average revenue per invoice then? We can start to use this data that we've got and this structure that we've got down the bottom to start to build those metrics. What's important to me within what's important to me within the business there. So as you can see now also, I've got a different structure. And this structure here is defined by me, and it's defined by me within Phocas. Now, it could be leveraged from your structure of your ERP system. That's totally fine. In NetSuite, in your case, we'd go in and we'd extract that data out, and it'd look like that. It'd look like your NetSuite system, or we can modify and change it within the tool, which we'll look at in a minute. But where this is also powerful is, I'm looking at my data here, and I might say, okay, well, what I really want to look at is I need to see it by branch. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab my branch cost center on the left-hand side. So you'll notice here I've got branch and I've got country listed here. So what I might do is I'm going to say, let's grab my branch and drag it up to the top and let it go. So now what we'll see is when I open up my operating expenses, you'll see it's got head office there, and there's all my head office expenses there for operating, which is fine. That might be how it's set up there. If I go in and say, maybe let's look at marketing expenses, you'll now see that is by each individual branch there. Really simple. Open that up and you'll get right down to the underlying data that sits under there without too much hassle. Now, what you might do though is, you might also go, well, actually, I don't need to see it like this. Or when we initially set up our chart of accounts, it was 5 years ago, it was 10 years ago in some cases there. The business has grown, we've bought another branch, we bought another business. How does that actually work? And how do we actually kind of change our chart of accounts or change our categorization because we really want it to reflect how I need to see it or how another stakeholder in the business needs to see it. So this structure, along with a balance sheet and a cash flow, can be changed depending on the actual needs of what you have there. So what I can do is, I can go up to the top here and I can say, hey, I'm going to edit my statements. So I'll click on my statements tab here. And now what you'll see is, here's a bunch of statements that I've got. My branch profit and loss, my budget profit and loss, I've got a balance sheet and a cash flow, and I can click on any of these. So I might say, let's look at my branch profit and loss. So I'll select that.
David, I have a question.
Yep.
Tim, can we compare the trade receivables at a customer level over time in a matter of months to see how each customer is trading, paying later or paying earlier, etc.?
We could do that. Depending on how that data sits together, what we actually typically do in that case is we will have a specific database built for that, which is an accounts receivable database. And it basically throws all that data into your buckets and say, okay, this customer's 0 to 30, this customer's 30 to 60 days, those types of things there. So we typically put that into a separate database if you need it down to that customer level. If you want to look at your cash flow and things like that, you could do your cash flow within the tool using the cash flow statement, but typically that's not down to that customer level to say this customer paid, this customer didn't pay this month, that type of stuff. So the answer is yes. We just probably build a slightly different solution around that.
Cool. Thank you, David.
Cool. Thanks. All right. So let's look at our branch profit and loss here now. I've got my statistical data at the top. So I've poured in my count of invoices. So this data here is coming from that sales environment that we saw right at the beginning there. Then you'll start to see I've got little references. So the letter A references my revenue. I'm dividing that by my invoices. So I've got my invoice count there, my average revenue per invoice. And as I scroll down, you can now start to see the structure of that profit and loss that we were just looking at. I've got total control over it, what my gross profit calculation is there, what my operating employee office expenses are there. If I want to add a group or add a calculation, it's just I click plus at the top and I build that from there. So I could add another group. Maybe it's going to be my motor vehicle expenses, or it's going to be my courier expenses. Freight is a big one for a lot of people at the moment. We really want to keep on top of that. So we'll go and build a specific group to keep on top of that there. So we could build that, and a couple of other options around like headings and spaces and general formatting there as well. So we can see the structure that we've got here, and we've built that nicely. But what we also want to be able to do is assign different accounts to those groups. So what we do is we use this accounts tab at the top to do that. So now I've got the ability to build or map any account to any different grouping that I need it to go to. I might say, look, let's look at my uniforms. Okay, my uniforms are currently under an employee expense in this case. Maybe I need to move it. It needs to go from employee expense. Maybe it's now an office expense. I just need to recategorize it for whatever reason. I can do that. I can click on the drop down and you'll now see where do I want it to go? What grouping does it need to go in? So all those formulas make sense there. So I'm going to move that to my office expense and we're done. So you'll now see that's updated. If I click save to that, you'll now see I click close. It's going to do a little rebuild. Now this will take a couple of minutes. We won't hang around waiting for it to kind of complete today, but that will just rebuild. It'll refresh your profit and loss and put that data into the right categorization. So these numbers will change slightly on the left-hand side. They're all in the middle of the page there, sorry. So there's our financial statements. One last thing that we want to think about here is, we spoke about it earlier with our sales data set. Who sees what, and what do people see within the database there? Now, I'm again a manager, so I'm seeing, or a power user essentially, so I'm seeing all branches. But remember, when you set up a user, you set up a user with a certain security profile. So if a user only sees branch number 6, for instance, there, you set them up and this report automatically filters based on that branch there. But if I need to see it just for branch 6, because I want to sit down and have a chat to the manager of branch number 6, I can do that. And I can actually get really detailed in my conversation, because what I can do is I can reset that. I can go in and I can select my branch, and then I can actually go and say, hey, I want branch number 6. I can then click my financial statements button at the top there. Now what we'll see is, this is for that specific branch, all my costs, all my revenue that's been generated there. In this case, we've only got marketing expenses there, a little bit of fuel and stuff like that. And there, maybe what I'll do is again, I'll just change it to that profit and loss format that we're interested in, my branch profit and loss. And here it is. So we can now see that. I might look at it and go, all right, well, why did you spend 30 grand on IT costs this month or this year or whatever it is? I can just right click on that figure and I can actually get right down to the transaction level. So it's so easy for me to really interrogate that data that I can go in and say, okay, every single transaction that went through that specific branch or went through there, this is what it's actually made up of there. And I'll be able to see all that information for that data that I'm actually looking at. So nice and simple, right down to that kind of month-end reconciliation. What's wrong here? I need to fix it. I've got all the data at my fingertips to do that. Let's reset that. And let's move away from our financial statements for the moment, because what I want to talk about here is this budget column now. We know that we can slice and dice our financial statement just like we could do with our sales environment there. But what we're really interested in now is how to actually build this budget, right? I want to enter this data in here, but I'm the finance manager. I don't want to be responsible for everything. I want my sales team to enter in the sales budget because they're the ones that are selling, so they should tell me how much they're going to do this year. I want my IT manager to enter in the IT costs there, so I want them to enter in that. So what we do is we take this format that everyone's familiar with because that's the way they've been run, the business is being run, and we extract the data out and we throw it into our budgeting tool. And that's what we can see here. So now what we've got is, this is the first time that we can actually input numbers into Phocas, and it's all around our budgeting of our business. So let's take a look at a few things. Let's go to office expenses to start with. Have a look at how that is broken down. Actually, I won't do office, let's do operating. Let's open up our operating expenses. You'll notice here that I'm actually budgeting by country, so I'm budgeting by country here in this case. So operating expenses for Australia and the US. I'll open up the US. Here's my budget. You'll notice that I've completed a couple of lines here already. We'll have a look at our bad debts. I can see I've done 407. I'm going to budget that I'm going to have $500,000 or almost $500,000 of bad debts over the next 12 months, which isn't looking great there. But I've also put a little comment on that cell there. So there's a bit of commentary about why that's going to be $4,000. In this case, the commentary is bad debts. If I want to add in another comment, I can just simply right click on that and just go comments, and I can add one in there and say which customers. And I can submit that. So now we've got a bit of workflow happening. There, I can start commenting. Other people can see these comments that have access to this budget. I can tweak this number really quickly and say, all right, well, hopefully we're not going to be 407. I'm going to be a bit more optimistic, and I'm going to say, look, it's going to be 300,000 over the next 12 months there. But I don't want to spread it evenly. I want to spread it based on how our sales were, also not our sales, how our bad debts kind of rolled last year there, how they were. So I'm going to go base it on actuals, and then I'm going to click apply. And you'll now see that's all adjusted based on that $300,000 that we've got there. So I can just save that or complete it if you like, and that's now closed. No one else can edit those cells within the tool. As a matter of fact, no one can edit a cell unless it's actually assigned to them. So gone of the days of which Excel version are we running from, which cell is correct, is this the right one, did I update the right one, etc., etc. There. So what we might look at in that case is, well, let's look at our revenue. And we might say, all right, well, I've got revenue. My sales teams looks after their revenue. They're the ones that need to enter that data in. But my revenue isn't just a single line of a sales account, which is typically how we see most customers set up there. They've got a revenue account for a region or a country in this case, but their budget is actually more detailed than that, isn't it? $26 million, yeah, but where's that $26 million come from? So again, we'll think back to our analytics. Again, we're all in the one tool still here again. It's the one-stop shop for everything there. I say, let's grab that sales data, let's use that to project our sales for our budget for the next 12 months, and then we can get our sales team to enter in the data that they need there. So what I've got down the bottom here, I've got another tab. So just like in an Excel sheet, you'd have another tab, but this time, all the links are built for you. So if I go in and say, let's look at the UK in this case, you'll see here's all my regions or counties in the UK, and you'll notice how detailed I actually do this. I do it by a region within a country, but then also I do it by product group. So these are the 3 or 4 product groups that we've got in Aberdeen that we want to budget by. If I look in Angus, you'll see there's another couple of product groups that people are using there. So what I want to do here is say, okay, well, look, I don't want to enter in the budget for all of those. I want my salesperson who looks after that specific region to actually enter them. So I might say, look, I've got a rep in here called Billy. Billy needs to budget for those different groupings that we've got there, or those different counties in that case. So what I do is I just click on that baseline button, I assign it to Billy, and we're good to go. So now Billy is the user that goes in and edits those. He edits them, adds his budget in, he submits it back to me, and then I either accept or reject it, and we get to see that full workflow happen within Phocas. These numbers then obviously automatically drive our revenue on the main page there, so everyone's on the same page. I see it all the time. Every single time I ask someone, oh, is your revenue budget in sales the same as the finance? And they go, in theory it should be, but it never is. Now it really will be there, because as soon as I hit publish, that will then publish that information back to our various different databases. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. So what else can we do here? Headcount. We all know it's pretty much the biggest expense in any business. I've got a few staff members that I've entered in here. You'll notice I've got my 3 sales directors plus a new staff member that's going to start. I've got their salaries accounts, their bonus accounts, and their commissions accounts. I can then enter in their salaries, their bonuses. I can then say, well, what's their commission? Okay, these guys are sales directors. Maybe they're incentivized on the total sales that they're going to do in their appropriate regions. So all I'm going to do here is go, commission is equal to my sales budget for Australia. So we're doing very similar to what we would see in Excel, times by maybe our sales manager in Australia or sales director in Australia gets 2% of the total budget there. So I've just put in 0.02 there. So now when I hit enter, there's the commission. So he's doing quite well. He gets $500,000 commission if he hits his budget there. Could do, again, the similar for the USA sales director, the UK sales director there. And all that information then rolls up over onto the right-hand side. We have a benefits plan built into the tool as well. So if they get a mobile phone, if they get a car allowance, those types of things, we can incorporate that with various different plans to get a true cost of an employee within the organization from there. So nice and easy how we can manage that. All this obviously then drives back to our employee expenses, all driven by our headcount tab there. Now, one thing, obviously, security is super important around headcount. There's actually another layer of security around headcount. You notice I've got that little padlock there that's unlocked at the moment because I've actually entered in another password. So there's actually 2 passwords involved in Phocas now, one to get in and then one to actually get into that headcount tab of the budget there. So it's very secure in regards to headcount. All right, so what we've looked at there so far is really basic budgeting. This account's going to do $1 million this year. We're going to sell that much, and this is the sales revenue, or this is the commission that our sales team are going to get based on their sales. Therefore, this is how much our employee is going to cost. But what about if your business was a little bit more complex and you wanted to do a little bit of, I guess, analysis or a bit of, what do I want to say here? I guess have some dials that you want to turn in the business. A few scenarios. What happens if I have an event in July? How does that affect my profit for that month? Or what about if I spend too much on my IT expenses over the next 12 months? Or I want to model the change in a CRM cost of cost of a CRM license depending on how many users I've got with that CRM system there. How do I do that? So there's kind of all these scenarios that we'd be talking about there. So what we actually have to do that is I've built one down the bottom here called my IT budget, and it's really just a manual budget builder or a manual driver that we build into the tool. And so I've kind of modeled my IT spend here in a bit more detail. I've got my cost of new hardware. I've kind of forecast what my new hardware cost will be each month there. I might say, let's put in some mobile phone costs there. Maybe we're going to spend $5,000 in September, again, because we want to put some new phones for sales team get put in there. Oops, if I can spell it correctly there. We'll leave that, that's fine. We'll submit that. And again, I can fill that out and say, okay, otherwise it's going to be $1,000 for each individual month there. Have a look at what's happening when I do this though. Have a look at this cell down the bottom. I've actually got my mouse over it now. If I click on it, you'll see what it's doing. See how it's got a formula built into it. So it's using the fields that I enter in above to drive my individual IT budget for each month. So now what I can do is I can say, look, for our CRM license, if we have 10 users, it costs $25 per month there. If we have 20 users, it's going to cost us $20 per month there. I might just drag that over, make it nice and simple. And then at 30 users, it's going to cost us $15 per month there. So what I'll do is I'll drag that across the page, or even right click and go copy forward. So what we'll now see is all these different cells have updated. So I'm starting to model. I can then start to turn various dials and say, okay, well, what happens if we go to 20 CRM licenses in July? How does that affect the overall budget that we've got there? Because I now use this cell down here to then pass it back to our main page again once I've done it. So I'd go in here, go to my IT costs, go to the IT costs for the USA and say, okay, my IT and computer costs is going to be equals to my IT budget that I've got there. And you'll see there's our $6,500, right click and copy forward. So that detailed modeling can happen depending exactly what it is that you need in your business. So there's obviously millions of scenarios that we could talk about in our budget tool, but what you've seen here is it's simple, it's easy to enter in. There's one version of the budget. There's not various different Excel sheets. There's security and workflow built into it. But let's just say right now I'm going to tap on the shoulder from the CEO and he's like, hey, David, how's the budgeting process going? I want to see what it looks like right now. Well, it's the click of a button away. I can publish this at any point in time, whether it's finished or it's not finished. I don't need to do any consolidation in Excel or anything like that. All I do is go down to that publish button in the bottom right-hand corner. I bang on that. It then pushes it back to my finance database that we were looking at a few minutes ago, ready for me to analyze. Because I can go back here like we saw, and I can say, all right, well, I want to analyze my budget. I just want to look at it for my next 12 months. So I can go in and you'll now see, here's my budget. All the budget data that I've entered in from my other data set has been brought into Phocas, and I can really start to see. In this case, we're looking at last year's budget, but it'd just be a matter of me changing the date range to look forward into the future there. So we've analyzed our budget, we're happy with it. It then becomes an action. We then want to compare our budget to our actuals. How do we do that? Well, we do it just like we did before. We visualize it. We bring in various different widgets and bits and pieces that's going to allow us to do that. So I've added a couple new columns in here now. And what I might want to budget by here is my average value per invoice. So that's a metric that I want to pull out from my budget. So what do? I just right click on it again and I say visualize. And here it is. It's going to show me, or should have built a chart for me, that I can then set for my average revenue per invoice. I'll actually cancel that. I think I know what I've done wrong. There we go. And then I can go right click on that, visualize it, and there's my little widget. In this case, this is just a summary widget that we're using, but then I can add it to a dashboard there, or I can show you a finance dashboard that we built earlier. So it's full circle that we're looking at now. We've got all the analysis tools available to us to look in this budget. I can filter it by my region and focus in on that, and you'll now see everything changes, driven directly from that financial statement. This is what I like to call financial data for non-financial people. You don't want your reps, you don't want your C-level executives looking at a profit and loss, branch managers looking at a profit and loss. Build a dashboard that looks like this, that has everything that they need on it. So just to recap, Phocas Analytics, slice and dice any data that you've got in your business. We looked at purchasing and sales today. Financial statements, get that data out to the people that need it in a simple, easy, governed way. And then we've got our budgeting and forecasting tool as well, empowering people within the business to take charge of their own budget, get rid of those Excel headaches that you might have already in your business there. And that's what we're really all about, that company-wide financial planning and analysis all in one platform there. So has there been any more questions come in there?
Yeah, there's a couple. One question is, can we bring in multiple data sources into Phocas?
Yeah, so we definitely can. So a lot of you guys might be running NetSuite at the moment, but then you might have like a little Xero system that sits off to the side, or you're about to buy another business that has a Microsoft product or SAP or something like that. The short answer to that is yes, and it's really a strength of ours. Because we can map a lot of data as we bring that in, it's really easy for us to incorporate that into the one view. So one view of all the different components of your business there for sure, yep.
With the ever-changing cyberspace that's out there, and a lot of attacks, obviously, with the changing climate, how secure is the actual solution?
Yeah, so we sit on the cloud, obviously. So similar to your NetSuite data, we sit on there. We run on Amazon Web Services, hosted locally in Australia there as well. and we're we're SOC 2 compliant as well. We've recently gone through that, so that's a high level of security audit that we do. So the data is very secure there. I'm probably preaching to the converted there. NetSuite being a cloud solution there as well. Cloud solutions almost have better security than on-premise stuff there, because you've got the best of breed constantly getting updated on those cloud servers, where your local servers, obviously there can be issues around that, whether the security is at a high enough level.
Cool. And one last question. Can you consolidate and bring together multiple information across different domains? So an example is, can you bring finance data into sales, or procurement data, or different sets of data across the organization into the one reporting area? Yeah,
the short answer to that is yes. And it can be brought in on, typically we do it on a dashboard level. So you'll have like one dashboard, the top of the dashboard might be financial metrics, the next part of the dashboard might be purchasing metrics, and the third part could be sales revenue or margin metrics there. We use those a lot, or a lot of customers are using those in those kind of monthly team meetings, company get together. Here's how we're going at a snapshot. There's a little bit from every department that everyone can talk to without having to go through death by PowerPoint, because when questions get asked, you can just drill down to the appropriate point within Phocas to kind of analyze that further. Yep.
Cool. That was the last question. Thank you, David.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Robert.
Okay, so I think you've walked through the financial statements aspect.
Yep. So this one here, if any of you guys do want a demo, a try version of it, you can actually get into the environment similar to what I was using today, using that phocassoftware.com/try there. So if they want to jump in and have a bit of a nose around themselves, by all means jump in and do that.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, David. We have another webinar with the Phocas team with David next month, and it's particularly around managing cash flow in your business from an automation standpoint. The reason why is NetSuite's cash flow is backward-looking cash flow. So it's, NetSuite incorporates the open payables and the receivables and whatever is in NetSuite, but this is more of a forward-looking cash flow and managing that forward-looking aspect of it and reporting. So that's next month on the 21st of July at midday. So we'll also send out emails to you to register for that event as well. So hopefully we get to see you there also. And yeah, next steps, either reach out to hello.anz@phocassoftware.com, or you can reach out to us at info@onekloudx.com, or I'm sure you'll know how to reach out to myself or any of the other team members at OneKloudX. So without further ado, thank you very much. I think we're on time pretty much. Thank you very much for your time today, and thank you, David, for taking the time out of your calendar to take everybody through the solution. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.